Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 12 of the Vuelta España 2023. Today's stage should be one for the sprinters because the wind just never materialized, even though a lot of times at the Tour of Spain, when you're going into Zaragoza, normally it's windy out there all the time. I have driven through Zaragoza before when I was coming from Dinia, going up to the Basque Country to start tour of the Basque Country and staying at my friend's house. It was always windy. When I raced the Vuelta España, it'd be windy. When I drove through, it was windy. But today, there's nothing, niente, nothing on today's course in terms of wind. So that's why when you see 150 kilometers and no mountains on today's stage, and the cameras come on at just over 115 kilometers to go, that's why we see only two riders in this front group. Now, these two riders, Jetse Bol from Burgos BH, we know him. He's always out there battling to try to get some showtime on TV for Burgos BH. And then we have Caja Royal Balderstone. Now, these two riders, they don't have much of a gap, only 2 minutes, because when the cameras go back, it's Alpecin de Koenig on the front. That's Jimmy Johnson, and of course Jason Osborne there pulling. Those are their two main early guys to work on Alpecin de Koenig, which means you have 5 guys left for the finish, but really only means because you have the sprinter Caden Groves that you have 4 there, because of course we were missing Gaze, who dropped out in the first week here of the Vuelta España late in the week, I believe around stage 8. So that leaves 4 guys to help lead out. One, Caden Groves, who's the big time favorite to win here on stage 12 of the Vuelta España. Now, of course, we got other sprinters in the group because we all remember Jeffrey Soup from Total Energy with the beard winning back there a few stages back on the last sprinter stage when he came out of that left turn. And of course, there's other quality competition with Milano from UAE team members, but he doesn't have much help here on stage 12 in terms of a full lead out coming into the final last turn with about 200 meters to go on today's stage. Now, unlike the last sprinter stage that Jeffrey Soup won, there's no hard right turn, left turn. There's nothing like that going into the finish. The last sprint stage actually finished with a left. Today, it has some soft bends to the left and a soft bend at 200 meters that'll bring you out to the finish line straight in with wide boulevard throughout the finish of the last 200 meters. But, like I said, nothing tricky on today's stage. So, those 2 riders are up the road, then all of a sudden there's a crash in the Peloton, and when I dissect the crash, let's go back just before it happened, because that's Rui Oliveira right there. That's UAE Team Emirates' last lead-out man from Milano that's at the back of the Peloton there, looking back while there's getting ready to be a crash just in front of him. Now, this is important because UAE Team Emirates Milano really only has one lead-out man, like I told you earlier, and his name is Rui Oliveira. So if he goes down in this crash, Milano's not going to be left with much help at the end of today's stage. And when we dissect the crash a little bit further, let's go up and see who probably caused it. Well, it looks like it's right there 2/3 of the way back in the Peloton, maybe 3/4. And I think it's a UAE Team Emirates rider that overlapped the wheel, went all the way from the right side of the Peloton and pulled hard left all the way through the Peloton. That caused a crash, and we see Pseudo Quickstep's Vervaki that went down in this crash. For Quickstep's Remco Evenepoel. Remember, he should be his last domestique rider in the big mountain stages that are going to start on tomorrow's stage 13 with the Col de Tourmalet. So that could be a big hit right there for Pseudo Quickstep. But Rui Oliveira made it through the corner, made it around the crash on the right side and missed the crash and stayed upright. Now, we can show you an interview just about 40 kilometers later. It's Milano giving the interview, and he's talking about Rui Oliveira having 100% faith in him. Good thing your guys didn't crash him up there at the front of the Peloton that caused that crash back there for Rui Oliveira, who made it through clean. Now, we're coming into about 45 kilometers to go. The 2 breakaway companions are all wrapped up nice and tight. And then all of a sudden, who do we see? Jetse Bol got caught. He's going to throw in another attack about 200 meters later. He goes solo up the road and gets brought in somewhere around 35 kilometers to go. Things start getting interesting at 20 kilometers to go because they're coming in the city and they have the intermediate sprint points and time bonification coming up here with 19 kilometers to go. Now they'll come into a little dip before the sprint points competition, and you see it's Jumbo Visma on the front. Jumbo Visma's throwing down, and then Caden Groves jumps out hard to the right, hits the afterburner, accelerates fast on the pedals, and we see Primoz Roglic just dangling off the back there, and he'll follow the draft all the way of Caden Groves, who wins the intermediate sprint and time bonification. But we see Primoz Roglic gets second on the stage, so that'll gain him a 4-second time bonus at the end of today's stage. Third on the stage, Casper Pedersen there for Pseudo Quickstep did everything he could to beat Primoz Roglic, but didn't have the legs to do it. Now, just after the sprint line points competition, look where Primoz Roglic is, all the way on the left side of the road. Well, he starts to drift to the right as the Alpecin de Koenig riders are coming back up to the front to control the peloton here to make it a field sprint on stage 12 of the Vuelta a España. Now, once the Alpecin de Koenig rider comes by, well, Primoz Roglic is still fading right, and you see the two riders kind of lock up a little bit. We had a close call for Primoz Roglic, who looked like he almost went down hard when he faded all the way from the left to the right side, and the Alpecin de Koenig rider connected. Now, we get into 15 kilometers to go. It's going curb to curb, and we see Sepp Kuss in the red race leaders jersey here, the Vuelta a España, always at the front. If I take you back to that sprint points competition, he was about 5th, if not 4th, on the sprint line there. So you know Sepp Kuss is being attentive throughout all these stages because he's got a shot at winning the race leaders red jersey here at the Vuelta a España and becoming the second American to win the Tour of Spain. Now up front, we're coming into under 9 kilometers to go. It's going 70, 60 kilometers an hour all the time throughout this section of the course. And we see up front that it's Bahrain Victorious driving at full gas. Just around 7 kilometers to go. Pseudo Quickstep take control of the front of the peloton here because they're trying to keep Remco Evenepoel out of danger so he can get into tomorrow's big-time mountain stages here at the Vuelta a España. He's got 2 riders riding the front full gas. Then with 5 kilometers to go, we see Intermarché train coming up the left side with 5 riders. Pseudo Quickstep won none of that, so we're going to see Casper Pedersen accelerate on the pedals and overtake the Intermarché riders coming up on the left side to keep Remco Evenepoel in fine position. Quickstep will pull all the way into about 4.5 kilometers to go. Now it looks like it's time for Jumbo to go to the front with Dylan van Baarle. Dylan van Baarle starts to go hard, but then look over to the right there. That's EF Education. And I believe it's Piccolo there on the right side. As instead, Dylan van Baarle backs off just a little bit, and EF Education rider will take us into the U-turn here where things start getting a little more twisty and technical, but we're coming up to 3 kilometers to go. EF Education rider pull off the front, then we'll see Dylan van Baarle accelerate hard on the pedals. Now we're going through all the trees. The camera here can't keep a close eye on what the peloton's doing, but to me it looks like EF Education's at the front, Pseudo Quickstep's around the front, and Jumbo Visma's just behind EF Education. As we see him pull off, Dylan van Baarle's going to go full gas. Now we're coming into just under 3 kilometers to go. Alpecin de Koenig, who were always near the front, now they're taking over at 2.9 kilometers to go with 3 riders on the front. When I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, I'm like, oh man, 3 riders on the front. That's looking a little dangerous because we still got about 3 kilometers to go, just a hair under. Then we see Caden Groves come slot up. Now we got 4 guys at the front. That's 3 lead out guys with just about 2.8 kilometers to go. That's still a little bit far. Then coming up the left side, look at the rider coming from the left from Alpecin de Koenig. He's got the bandages all wrapped up around his arms and legs. That rider right there is the last lead out man for Caden Groves. His name's Robbie Geese. Robbie Geese comes right up and slots into the 4th position. Now Alpecin de Koenig have 5 riders lined up here with under 2.7 kilometers to go. We got Tobias Bayer on the front. He's doing a marvelous job. Guys, he is pulling something fantastic on the front. He's going to pull from 2.9 kilometers all the way into 1.7 kilometers to go when Tobias Bayer pulls off. Next rider to come up for Alpecin de Koenig, that's Maurice Balderstedt there. When Balderstedt starts pulling, look what's happening back there to Caden Groves. Caden Groves bumping hard off the Intermarché shoulder there. Then he comes off of Intermarché, bumps hard with Trek Segafredo there, Ed Toons I believe it is, and that makes him a little bit of gap so he can follow through and stay on the wheel of his teammates in front of him. Now they're looking solid at the front with Maurice Balderstedt doing a fabulous job. Now as they came out of that last left bend though, just before, look, the Trek Segafredo rider slotted in. That's Jacobo if I'm not mistaken, and Jacobo was leading out Ed Toons. Ed Toons, though, lost Jacobo as he slotted into the 2nd position on the Alpecin de Koenig wheels. Now Ed Toons is trying to fight back there to get the wheel of Caden Groves. This was a mistake from Liddell Trek up front, and it's a mistake for sure for Jacobo, because once he slides in, that means now Ed Toons is out in the wind there for Trek Segafredo, and he has gone podium here at stages of the Vuelta a España earlier in the first week, but he's fighting for the wheel. He's not going to win that battle straight up without a whole lot of effort being spent out in the wind as he's fighting with the EF Education rider. We look a little bit further back, and we see that this is the duel back there from UAE Team Emirates, Milano and his leadout man, Rui Oliveira. Now up front with 900 meters to go, we see that Maurice is pulling off hard right. When he pulls off, Trek Segafredo Jacobo's taking the pull, but this is what I'm talking about. This was a mistake for Trek Segafredo to pull in, and it was a mistake for Intermarché to let the Trek Segafredo rider pull in, because as he starts looking right over his shoulder, he sees the sprinter's too far back, and there's too many Alpecin de Koenig riders on his wheel. He'll take a look left over his shoulder and see if anything looks different, but I'm sure the picture's the same, just looking down the different aisle there in the back of the peloton. So what does he do? Jacobo pulls out quick after only about 75 meters on the front. That's going to leave two Alpecin de Koenig riders on the front to lead out one Caden Groves. But they're under 900 meters to go, so when I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, I'm like, wow, these guys have done a phenomenal job. Tobias Bayer pulled for over 1 kilometer. Maurice Balderstadt pulled for a K. Now up front, Maurice pulls off and the Trek Segafredo rider get out of the way. It's time for who? Plankert. Edward Plankert's on the front. He's driving it at under 900 meters to go. He's pulling somewhere from about 700 meters, going full gas, and he's got both his guys on his wheel. As they come through the turn with 400 meters to go, we see up front, of course, it's Plankert still leading, and then we see Robbie Geese followed by Caden Groves. They're their sprinter with 400 meters to go. I'm thinking they got this wrapped up. 400 meters to go. None of these guys have really touched the wind that's left for Alpecin de Koenig. But Garrett, back the film up for the viewers here on the Butterfly Effect so we can see 500 meters to go, because there was something there that I missed. Well, it's Milano pulling out at 500 meters to go, and he's going out to the right side of the group as the road is bending to the left. I missed it because it didn't look that important at 500 meters to go. If Milano jumps from there, he's got no chance of winning today's race. When you got 3 Alpecin de Koenig riders on the front who have barely touched the win because of the fabulous lead out they've already had here on stage 12 of the Vuelta a España. Well, up front, it's time there for Plankert. He's going full gas. Then he'll pull off at about 350 meters to go, and it's time for Robbie Geese to do the final lead out. This moment, they got it won, guys. There's no doubt about it, but let's look at the picture as it gets a little bit wider. UAE team Emirates are coming full gas with Rui Oliveira that's doing a massive lead out back there from Milano. I don't know where he's finding the speed, but he's finding it fast. They're coming into 225 meters to go, the last left bend up there, as we see UAE team Emirates are coming over the top of Robbie Geese. They're coming over the top of Robbie Geese, and look at Milano. We'll give you the aerial view as he comes over the top. He's pushing the back wheel on the front wheel there of none other than Alpecin de Koenig's Robbie Geese, who's the last lead-out man for Caden Groves. That'll slow the speed down of Robbie Geese, which is slowing the speed down back there for the sprinter Caden Groves, who's already won 2 stages here at the Vuelta a España. With that happening, we see up front Rui Oliveira is doing a solid lead-out, pulling all the way into 150 meters to go. He's got a gap on Boy Van Poppel back there from Intermarché, who can't hold the wheel of Milano. We see just with about 75 meters to go, Caden Groves kicked out hard to the right. 50 meters to go. He's coming quick up on the Intermarché wheel of Boy Van Poppel and then passing him fast. But up front with 10 meters to go, well, it's time for Milano to start celebrating. If you look over to the right of Milano, it's time for Caden Groves to start being upset and pounding the handlebars. And if you back the film to 10 meters to go again and look back there behind Milano, that's his teammate Rui Oliveira in 4th that's already starting to celebrate too. So crossing the line to win today's stage 12 is going to be Milano. Sebastian Milano from UAE Team Emirates. Their sprinter will win today's stage 6. Second on the stage, Caden Groves. So he's going to hold on to the sprint leader's points jersey, of course, because he's got a massive lead. Third on the stage, Intermarché's Boy Van Poppel. And 4th, Rui Oliveira, the main lead-out man for Milano, who won today's race. Now after the finish line, you'll see big time celebration, arms wide across the chest there, as we see that is Milano celebrating a victory. Shortly after that, he's doing a 180 flip with his bike, as we see Rui Oliveira is dropping his bike, then Milano's dropping his bike, and those two guys are going to celebrate big time the victory here at the Vuelta a España for their first stage win for UAE Team Emirates. Afterwards, you're going to see a little more hugging and a little more posing for the pictures as Milano and Rui Oliveira are celebrating big time. In the interview afterwards that Philippe Gilbert did with Rui Oliveira, he's totally exciting. Very entertaining interview here from UAE Team Emirates Rui Oliveira, who said he knew he had good legs, but they got boxed in a little bit at 1 kilometer to go, and then he just hit out hard to the line with Milano on his wheel, and it felt like a victory for Rui Oliveira as much as it did, I'm sure, for Milano on today's stage 12. Congratulations, UAE team members. That was a magnificent lead out there from Rui Oliveira, and Milano, your speed going to the line was top notch as nobody was gaining time on Milano. Caden Groves a little bit, and when I dissect what happened to Caden Groves, let's go back and look at the aerial view. I did mention already that when Milano came over the top of the wheel there of Robbie Geese from Albacete de Koenig, that had Albacete de Koenig, Robbie Geese have to slow down a little bit, and then that's slowing down Caden Groves. But he also must have skipped a gear because it looks like his foot came out of his pedals, and that's why you see his head down as he clips back in. When he does get on the accelerator to try to win today's stage, he's way too far behind of the speed there of Sebastian Milano to be able to make it up, but did a great job of running second on today's stage. Now, the one interview I definitely want to talk about, Sepp Kuss wearing the race leader's red jersey, where nothing changed in the general classification. Top 10 with the exception of the time bonuses there from Primoz Roglic, who will gain some more time there on the important guy, Remco Evenepoel, that's sitting in front of him. But Sepp Kuss was asked, do you defend tomorrow or do you attack tomorrow? Well, that's a good question. If you're Sepp Kuss and you're feeling fantastic and your legs are perfect and you think you can climb with Remco Evenepoel on tomorrow's mountainous monster stage here going up and finishing at the summit, of course, Col de Tourmalet, then Sepp Kuss should just keep the pace smooth and calm throughout the stage. If you're feeling bad, though, Remco Evenepoel is going to have to drop Sepp Kuss, which means Primoz Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard can follow the wheel of the Belgian rider the whole way up to Col de Tourmalet. And if they really are better, they should be able to drop them close to the summit and gain that 30 seconds and 1 minute time on Remco Evenepoel, if they're better. Now, Remco Evenepoel, what do you got to do? Well, hopefully you keep all your climbers around you and you don't send them up the road in the breakaway, because you want to start the Col de Tourmalet and you want to blow this race up as hard as you can. So you want all of your main climbers solid fresh when the Col de Tourmalet starts on tomorrow's last and final summit climb of stage 13 of the Vuelta a España. You got to drill it at the bottom of that climb, and you got to hope you can pop the American Sepp Kuss and then hold off the attacks from Jonas Vingegaard and Primoz Roglic. If Jonas Vingegaard has any doubt in his form and Sepp Kuss should come off close to the finish of tomorrow's stage, Jonas Vingegaard's job will be to go back there and stay with Sepp Kuss, do damage control, and hopefully keep it under a minute's time of loss, so that Remco Evenepoel has to drive on the front going up the Col de Tourmalet with one Primoz Roglic, the number 3 best rider in the world up here on the butterfly effect, battling with the number 4 best rider in the world on the butterfly effect, Remco Evenepoel. So Sepp Kuss, you're good, you keep the pace slow. If you're bad, you want, of course, to stay on for as long as you can and suffer, and then hope Remco Evenepoel can't get rid of Primoz Roglic. If you drop late up Col de Tourmalet, Jonas Vingegaard, if your legs aren't feeling great, you got to go back for Sepp Kuss and pace him if you think there's any chance that the American Sepp Kuss can stay within that minute and 10 seconds to Remco Evenepoel at the finish of tomorrow's Col de Tourmalet climb. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. It's going to be a spectacular mountain stage, the first big mountain stage here at the Vuelta a España. I'll see you for tomorrow's stage 13.